Welcome to the news review section where we delve deeper into the day's top story. The US has confirmed that it has seized a tanker load of Iranian oil, escalating tensions between the two sides. The Justice Department says it seized the Greek-managed tanker Suez Rajan and its load of nearly 1 million barrels of oil in April. The Iranian crude was allegedly being sold to China when it was intercepted. The US claims the sale violated sanctions on Iran. Tehran has already warned of an appropriate response in case of any act of piracy against Iranian tankers, stressing that the era of hit and run is over. Now to talk further on this, we are joined by Emeritus Professor of Accounting from California State University, Mr. Foote from Irvine, California, and also Mr. DeBar, activist and commentator from Ossining, New York City. First of all, welcome to the program, sir.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my pleasure.
Glad to have both of you on the program. Now, starting with Mr. Foote. Now, many people are calling the U.S. seizure of the Iranian oil tanker, which is worth around $56 million, they call it a classic example of broad daylight banditry. Your idea on this, sir?
Well, that's absolutely correct that America is currently being led by organized crime. But people need to read some history. This is nothing new. The media in this country is now saying, well, we're taking it from the Revolutionary Guard. Nonsense. You're taking it from the people of Iran. Read some history. In the 1800s, there was the Reuters concession, where a weak Shah agreed to give away most of the oil to benefit himself. Early 1900s, there was the Darcy concession. Same thing. And then the British-American, the British Petroleum, British Iranian Petroleum Company, is now BP, was taking oil and giving almost nothing from the proceeds to Iran. So the theft has been taking place for more than 100 years against Iranians. The techniques have changed. The current technique is to claim that America has a right to issue sanctions. America is supposed to be a country of free enterprise, capitalism. The people currently in power, such as Biden and all the supporters of Israel, are anti-capitalist and enemies of the American people.
That's right, sir. Now, Mr. DeBar, it took the cargo, or the U.S. to transfer the cargo to another tanker. It was named MR Euphrates. It took them 4 months of dilly-dallying. Why was the reason for this?
Well, first of all, the taking of this, the legal process around seizing someone else's property it's called civil forfeiture in the United States, and the location of this particular seizure, Texas, is the worst abuser of this process. They're noted for the abusive process. People driving through Texas would get pulled over for speeding, and the next thing in their Maserati, and the next thing you know, the sheriff has a Maserati. It was really that bad. Professor was right. The foundational law here, which is the assumption that the United States can impose sanctions on one country, prohibiting them from doing business with another, flies in the face of international law. There's no authority for that under the UN Charter or anything flowing from the UN Charter. The U.S. has no right to interfere with commerce between Iran and any other country in the world. This is just not something that is recognized under international law. The legal term for what the U.S. has done is called piracy. I mean, this is as much piracy as if Joe Biden was staggering around on a wooden leg with a parrot on his shoulder. And we're talking about 1 million gallons of oil. What's the price of crude go now? You're talking tens of millions of dollars. This is major theft. It's one of many. If you look at Libya's oil, Iraq's oil, Syria's oil, even now being illegally stolen from Syria in direct violation of international law and at gunpoint, it's hard to come to any other conclusion than the United States is a pirate state out stealing things at gunpoint from every other country in the world that it can take over. If you look at oil, Venezuela and Iran are two that resist, and they're under heavy sanctions, and the others were conquered. Iraq, Libya, that's what the United States is, and you have to see this in that context. I don't see any other context for it.
Mr. Foote, like Mr. Don DeBar said about piracy, it's been looting Syrian oil, Libyan oil. Syria, the Syrian oil ministry accused the U.S. of stealing 66,000 barrels of oil per day, which is around 80% of the country's oil production. So how can this happen in 2023 without any consequences?
It's the problem of the ignorance of the American voters. They rely on the mainstream media, which is dominated by Zionists. They're ignorant. They don't know what's going on. And they have no understanding of capitalism and moral values. This is theft. We should not be involved in this kind of theft. You can add Ukraine to the list too. On and on, we're just throwing away America's wealth and making enemies around the world and bringing closer the day when no one will want to do anything with us. Thanks to the lunatic leftists and the neoconservatives and the Christian Zionists in this country.
Before we wrap this up, Mr. Don DeBar, Iran said or warned of an appropriate response. It's also said the era of hit and run is over. So what does Tehran mean by this?
You know, I mean, this is also a provocation, obviously. And this comes right after the BRICS conference, the ascension, the partnering of Iran and others, the rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and the outreach that Iran and Venezuela have done to each other. That shows that they can saber rattle all they want. They could steal a few more boatloads of oil, but the world is changing, and they're going to have to deal with that. And as long as there's solidarity among the countries that are the victims of these sanctions, and worse, then the position of the United States will be, in essence, rendered impotent. And when you have all the oil, you get to set the terms for the sale of it. And they might be having a hissy fit about that right now, but they're going to have to deal with this. So I would say Iran should be patient, have obviously hold up its dignity, but be patient because the world is shifting in its favor.
That's right, sir. Mr. Foote, Mr. Don DeBar, thank you for being on the program, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. There you have it, Mr. Paul Foote, Emeritus Professor of Accounting from California State University, and also Mr. Don DeBar, activist and commentator from New York. Thank you, sir. And with that, we come to the end of the news review program. We'll continue with the rest of the news after the break.